Over the years, you've heard me ask wealth manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes up to 9 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show on this Thursday morning, the last day of July. How are you doing this morning? Thank you for being with us here on 702. The 702 open line starts now on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. On YouTube, you can also express your opinions there, your inputs on the 702 open line. Just go to the 702 YouTube page if you want to watch and listen to the show at the same time. Hello if you're watching us there on YouTube. We'll read your comments from there as well. How fascinating were the legal arguments in the Constitutional Court yesterday? The former President Jacob Zuma and the MK party went to the court to invalidate President Ramaphosa's decision to put Senzo Mchunu on special leave, right? They believe that he violated the Constitution by putting him on special leave because the Constitution only expressly empowers him to hire and fire. The party also challenges the President's institution of the Commission of Inquiry, and their issue is, what is it going to achieve? Because past recommendations of commissions have sort of been ignored to an extent, especially when it comes to the political leaders or people in government. That's the point that the MK party was making in Parliament. So, in court. So, should the allegations against Senzo Mchunu have resulted in him being fired? That's really the question here. As opposed to him being put on special leave. Did the president act rationally? Is he empowered by the Constitution to suspend a minister and appoint an acting one? Is it explicit in the Constitution that he may suspend? The MK party says there are no such powers. And if the drafters of the Constitution wanted those powers to be expressly clear, they would have done so. Because in other sections of the Constitution, he is in fact empowered. I think section 177. The president is empowered to suspend, for instance, a judge on the recommendation of the JSC. So that's part of the points that they made. What do you think? I'll play some of the clips from the Constitutional Court, and I would like to hear where you stand on this one. Which argument do you think was strong? Which argument do you think was weak? What's convincing you more? We'll find out if the party was able to actually prove to the court that there was legal basis for it to launch this urgent legal challenge in the Constitutional Court and not the High Court, because that's the hurdle, right? Mpofu conceded yesterday that the matter could have been taken to the lower courts, but he argued that it would have taken years to have it ventilated and there would be no country left by the time this matter reached its finality. So let me know your thoughts on 011-883-0702, your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. The Democratic Alliance is opposed to the possible sale or lease of the Pretoria City Hall to the Iranian embassy. And I wonder what you think about this, the position that they have taken. So, for some context, the Iranian embassy has approached Tshwane over the possibility of handing over the City Hall to the Iranian embassy, because the City Hall, we're talking here about a building that's not been in operation for a while now. The embassy said it wanted to build Iranian restaurants. They want to build a museum and a library in the hall, which would generate economic opportunity for the city of Tshwane, right? So economically, you're probably thinking, tick. The DA's caucus leader, Cilliers Brink, said this should be immediately rejected because South Africa is in negotiations with the US to show up that relationship, and the capital city should not undermine that. So the DA in Tshwane says, if you dare even start talking to the Iranians or giving this building to them to lease, then you are going to anger the US, and that's not going to be good for us, given the negotiations that are currently underway between the two countries. What do you think about that? Because it's okay. Trump tells us, don't be part of the BRICS, otherwise I'll give you a 10% tariff. Trump tells us, don't talk to China. Why are you talking to Russia? But he's allowed to talk to them. America can go and negotiate with Russia. They can go and negotiate with China. I bet you America, whenever it wants to and decides to, it can go and sit with the Iranians too. But no, we can't. So what do you think of this decision? This position that the DA holds in Tshwane, and what do you think should be the position of the city of Tshwane? Here's a hall that's not being used. It could be used for economic benefit of the city. What do you think Tshwane should consider here? Go ahead and make a deal with the Iranians to take this, build those restaurants and museums there? Or do you agree with the DA that this is going to put us in an awkward situation once again with the Americans? 011-883-0702. Your WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM.
Morning, Clement, JK from Hammanskraal. You see, regarding the Concord arguments yesterday, Zuma thinks he's the only special person or president. When he was president, there are lots of things that happened. He had the same powers, and there was no argument about that. But now just consider this. If somebody is your boss or employer, they employ you, and then they can fire you. And they can also do anything in between. Let me give you a very, very simple example. It's like looking at a rich man who is able to buy a whole dozen of eggs, and then you say that person cannot or doesn't have powers to buy 1 or 2 eggs. So it's a very ridiculous argument, and they themselves as a defense, they could see that they are fumbling. But as I say, the results are going to show once again they'll have egg on their faces as usual when Ramaphosa wins this case again. Jack from Hammanskraal.
Good morning, Clement. I was listening to the proceedings yesterday, and I must say it was a bit difficult trying to keep up with everything that they were saying because of all the legal jargon. I even heard them talking about jurisdiction and why couldn't they go to the High Court and this and that and other apex courts. And so it was a bit difficult trying to comprehend everything. I don't know if you can get someone who can try and break down the heads of arguments from each side and all applicants and as well as the defendants, and just try and break it down, because it was a bit difficult trying to keep up with everything.
Look, my advice to you would be go check out Section 913C of the Constitution, Section 177 of the Constitution, and Section 98 of the Constitution. Because those really, I would say, were some of the central sections of the Constitution at the heart of, the main arguments that were being made yesterday. So the president has the power to hire and fire the people that he appoints, right, to be part of his cabinet and to be deputy ministers. The MK party, the former president Jacob Zuma has been arguing that nowhere in that section of the Constitution does it say you can also place on special leave someone. It says you can hire or fire them. But remember what the president said is, I hereby place Senzo Mkhunu on special leave and I'm appointing an acting minister. So they've argued that, but where? Where does it say you can, because the constitution then should have said you can fire, hire, and place on special leave / suspend, even though one of the justices argued that putting on special leave and suspending, what if that is the same thing? Are we not, like when we look at the jargon here, are we separating that these two phrases mean something that is different? Because then are you suggesting that the president doesn't have the power to suspend the ministers? But the former president's legal team says, but this person gets suspended and they retain their full benefits. So there are questions about what the Constitution expressly says. For instance, Section 98 of the Constitution says the president may assign to a cabinet member any power or function or another member who is absent from office, or when that member is absent from office is unable to exercise that power or perform that function. So what the president is empowered to do is to assign a cabinet member the function of that office if there's a minister who's not around, for instance. So that is quite key. That's why when a minister maybe is traveling, there will be an acting minister off. Or you take the deputy minister, they become acting minister off, because the president has the power to do that. And that's precisely the point that his team was also trying to make. That, well, in this case, I think it was also, Senzo Mkhunu's legal team as well that tried to argue that Section 98, also, you must read that because it tells you of the power that the president has. In this case, Senzo Mkhunu is absent from office, is unable to exercise the functions of that office and the power, so the president can bring in somebody else, in Anton Katz, who will still be sworn in and then will be part of cabinet and then starts acting as the police minister. In fact, let me refresh your memory a little bit. Listen to what these arguments that were made in court. Let's start with Advocate Dalimpofu, who was arguing that Ramaphosa took action because allegations were untested, right? That's what Ramaphosa has said. And Ramaphosa said these allegations will be tested in the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. But Dalimpofu was trying to say, but that's a fallacy, because what did the Zondo Commission recommendations, for instance, how did that get us to a point where there's action taken against people in government? So he was trying to argue that this commission is not really going to help in any way, because this person is probably going to be promoted, or their career prospects in government are not going to be affected, because past recommendations of commissions have shown us that.
If the president had said that he's placing Minister Mkhunu on suspension with full pay, would the applicants have been able to advance the arguments that are being advanced on their behalf today?
If he said he was placing him on suspension with full pay, well, at least one of the arguments that we're advancing would not be competent, which is the one about imposition, because a suspension, as we all know, is something that is imposed. But the other arguments would still.
Are we playing with words in terms of leave of absence and suspension?
No.
When the one might mean the other? And are we placing form over substance?
Justice, you see, the president. Let me, and again, since I was listing disappointments, this is another disappointment, because the president seeks to mislead the court by creating, to justify that by pointing to the Zweli Mkhize example. And he says under oath that he placed...
Mr. Mpofu, I'm very mindful of time. My question is a simple one. Are we placing more emphasis on form over substance? Regardless of what the President may have said, the President may have used the words leave of absence. Are we here in this courtroom now, and we have to distill this matter, are we placing emphasis on form over substance? If we have to say leave of absence is this, it should have been suspension, or if the word suspension had been used, then some arguments would not have been advanced today.
No, we're not, Justice Theron. Firstly, because I've answered you to say that some of those arguments apply to both. So why would it be form over substance? And I'm saying the one argument which would not be competent, which I concede would not be competent, is the one about the imposition. I'm isolating it to that, but I'm not, that doesn't mean all the other...
Would the President, or does the President have the power to suspend a minister?
No.
And what do you advance as authority for that submission?
Because it goes back to where we started. That power can only, since we all agree, all of us in the room agree that there's no express power. That can only be found on implied powers. Okay? So there are two reasons. When the Constitution wants to... Sorry. Yes. When the Constitution wants to afford the President the power of suspension, it says so. It says so in section 177(3), I think. Yes. So section 177(3) says the President, on the advice of the JSC, may suspend a judge who is the subject of a procedure in terms of subsection 1.
You see, that section 177 says if the Constitution really wanted the President to have that power to place on special leave or /suspend, it could have expressly said so. But I'm not really convinced there. So what would happen then if there is someone who has allegations against them and the President wants to allow for due process to unfold before that person can continue with their duties? Are we suggesting now that the President, because they expressly in the Constitution it says the President may hire or fire, does that mean that the President must fire everybody else? So I could wake up tomorrow and say, hey, the Environmental Affairs Minister, this is or Agriculture or whatever, these are the allegations I make, and we expect the President to do what? Fire them? Because that's what expressly in the Constitution he's empowered to do? Or do we say, well, there are implied powers here as well? He's got the power to also say, I can suspend you pending this inquiry. And the argument there is, what is he relying on from the Constitution? Listen to what Anton Katz, Advocate Anton Katz, who represents the MK Party, said as well, trying to advance an argument around why Senzo Mchunu was placed on special leave and not necessarily fired.
That's the point, Justice Matopo. Why would he be given leave of absence without dismissal? There's only one reason rationally that it could be, that he keeps his benefits. There's no other reason, because he's not exercising any powers or functions. None.
Can I tell you what my difficulty is?
Yeah.
If the President were to act the way you suggest on allegations, I'm just worried that we could be plunging this country into some sort of a situation that is difficult to contemplate. Because if allegations were to be made by persons in the same caliber as Lieutenant Mkhwanazi, it means against maybe 5 or 10 cabinet ministers. It means on your construction, they have to either be reshuffled or sent home.
Justice Matopo, you've actually, with respect, you've actually hit the nail on the head. Let's assume there are 10 cabinet ministers who are fingered by the police commissioner, the provincial minister. Would all 10 be suspended and 2 new acting people come in? Or 20? Where does one draw the line? That's the problem. So it's worse if he has to, it's worse from you put it to me, Justice Mothopo would be in trouble if he had to do what I suggest is the way forward. I submit we'd be in serious trouble if he could do what he's done. That is, suspend when there are serious allegations made every single time it happens. That's exactly the point. I put it on reverse, jiu-jitsu. It's worse for the president if he has to do if he can do what he's done in the way that he's done it because there's serious allegations. Let's say tomorrow there's a serious allegation against Minister of Home Affairs. Tomorrow's Thursday, Friday suspends him, appoints an acting Minister in Home Affairs. Monday, serious allegations against the Minister of Finance. Tuesday, suspend.
No, but it does not necessarily follow that if such a scenario were to present itself, the president always acts in terms of section 91.3c. He may or he may not. And 91.3c gives him not more than two persons.
Well, there's a debate as to whether those two... There's the simple proposition, and I'm not dealing with that for the moment. I'm talking about the question of suspension. Justice Mothopo, you said to me, it would put the president and the country in a difficult position if every time there were serious allegations, the president couldn't suspend but would have to dismiss. I'm answering that question, that debate. And I'm putting the opposite proposition, that were the president be allowed to suspend every time there's serious allegations, you could have the whole cabinet suspended.
Yeah, but also you could have the whole cabinet taken out based on allegations. And I think what Justice Mothopo was trying to say there is, okay, what happens in instances where there are allegations against, let's say, 5 ministers in cabinet that have not been tested? Are we suggesting that because the president constitutionally has that power to hire and fire, then those people must just be suspended, those people must just be fired? Or must there be room there to allow for due process? Let's test the allegations. And how do you test the allegations? Well, the presidency believes put them on special leave. But there's an argument that, but these people are keeping their benefits. What are your thoughts, having heard these specific arguments? 011-883-0702. Send us a WhatsApp voice notes. Put your comments there on YouTube as well. We'll come to them after the headlines.
Over the years, you've heard me ask Wealth Manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
23 minutes before 10 o'clock. Let's continue with your calls on the 702 open line. Godfrey, you are in Midrand. What are your thoughts on yesterday's arguments in the Constitutional Court? Good morning.
Clement, good morning to you. You know, you've nailed it. The two clips that you've played, including the one by the last judge, Mothopo, just sums it up. But my humble submission is that in terms of talking about what is the clear, easy principle in law, audi altem patem rule, listening to both sides. And the MK, and sadly, that's, typical of Dali and Khan here, seem to pretend as if this is a matter about Mtuno alone. There are the Browns of this world, the Brown Mokotis of this world, the so-and-so, the so-and-so. What about their side of the story? Because at the end of the day, the president is beset with having to deal with what is allegedly a corrupt state that includes the judiciary, and there's an argument whether it's at magistrate level or at prosecutor level, blah, 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 but that's not the issue. And you could see yesterday, because I did watch it, even when Judge Shiklu was asking, starting with Judge Mashampa, I think, and then Judge Shiklu, you could see the irritation, because there's an embarrassing lack of common sense. You can't wake up and say, Madimeja is a thief, and then Madimeja is fired because I said so. Who the hell am I? It must be tested, and Madimeja has a right at law. Basic. It's not labor law. It's nothing. It is a basic human right. It's a basic right at law for him to be heard and for him to cross-examine so that I can prove what I'm alleging. What we are dealing with here is we're just dealing with what I call, what they themselves, the lawyers call, vexatious litigants. They hate Ramaphosa, and that's fine. And it's sad that, a constitutional democracy allows all these rats and funny things to come out of the woodwork and literally waste money and time. Because the roll call in this country, as you know, Clement, there are many other more, in my mind, significant cases. Here is this thing. Now it's sitting at 3 different fora. At the Constitutional Court, Parliament in its own way is meandering its way. Judge Masanga now has to tap dance around this to make sure that, and whoever are being gathered to come and work on this thing, and something might come out about objections of some of the members of the of employees in the commission, for all I care to know. Because everybody is trying to scuttle and say, you can never, whether you are, no matter how smart you are, on hearsay, unproven. And what happened to the principle of we're all innocent until proven guilty?
I mean, that would be a disaster. Can you imagine that just because there's any allegation, how this would be weaponized even in politics if this is the way that we'd expect the presidents to act and use their prerogative? Just fire them, suspend them because, someone else has claimed that they are implicated in this or that. But here's a question for you, Godfrey. Technically speaking, and according to the law, how do we then justify that action? Because that's precisely the question Dalimpofu asked, is when you look at section 177, the drafters of the Constitution wanted it to be expressly clear that the president may suspend, for instance, judges, right, on the recommendations of the JSC. So Dalimpofu says, but where in the Constitution does it say the president can place this person on special leave?
We are not all endowed with common sense. And thirdly, and as I call him Chanam because I know him, we are not endowed with common sense. You can never have the right to fire and hire, or hire and fire, or fire and hire without following due process. It is such common sense. But common sense is not for everybody.
Wait, Godfrey. I disagree there with you because to hire and fire, that is the prerogative of the president. So sometimes it didn't make sense. Like when Zuma fired Pravin Gordhan, for instance, and he brought up some fake intelligence report, right? So we can't argue that, okay, you fire and hire, but sometimes it's not going to make sense. It's on your prerogative as the president, and that's the unfettered power that sometimes presidents have, and that we should question.
This case is going to prove that there is not unfettered power, because there is a right to be heard and there is a need to investigate. There is a need for the president to apply their mind, Clement. Tell me, where do you apply your mind when all at every whim, at every step you can jump and hire and fire because it literally says so, and you don't apply your mind, you don't give the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he who alleges must prove. Remember. So what are those principles? Are those principles not applicable in this case? Remember, there is a subject called interpretation of statutes, by the way, as well. And I'm not sure that it's fair that it's done at first year level. Yeah. By this time, some people don't apply it appropriately. And this is why we have courts, because advocates and lawyers can make submissions, but they cannot make opinions. So I'm telling you, wait for this one, Clement. If you are on the other side, that alleges that you can just wake up and say, I have a right to fire, and then you fire. But you don't do things correctly and procedurally and legally fair and apply common sense. I'm asking you to add. You're going to be in trouble.
And I agree with you on principle that shouldn't be the case. But do you agree with me, Godfrey, that there's no minister that can run to court and say, I was fired by the president and the president didn't follow due process? Do you agree that there's no minister who can challenge that because it's on the prerogative of the president?
On that principle, I hear you. But all I am trying to say to you is it can never be that the MKP is right. No.
But how do we test rationality is what I'm asking, Godfrey. How do we test that the president's decision to fire someone is rational when that basis is on someone's prerogative? Because the concept of prerogative is very subjective. You and I can think that Zuma was wrong to fire Pravin Gordhan. But Pravin Gordhan, but Pravin Gordhan, for instance, that's just an example. Pravin Gordhan wouldn't have a legal strong case to go and argue, I was fired unfairly, because Zuma could say, well, it's my prerogative. I actually think that you didn't do a good job. So how do we test the rationality of that decision?
Let me surprise you. I would go to court, even as a minister. Prerogative or no prerogative. I'm not challenging the prerogative.
Yeah.
I am just saying to this person, you took away my basic right of the right to be heard. You presumed, you believed the other side in terms of their lie.
Yeah.
Where is my side of the story in all this?
Yeah.
And here is my proof for why these people have done what they've done.
Okay,
and
got you.
Yeah,
got you. Godfrey, let me hear what the other listeners think. I hear you. I'm not fully convinced, but I do think there's a fair point here, because remember the DA once went to court, in fact, I think when Pravin was fired, and they said, what was the reason for that? So as much as it is your prerogative as the president, the DA successfully went to court to say to the president, what was your reason? But that doesn't mean the president can reverse it. It just means you can just tell us, what did you base that on, basically? James, you are in the Johannesburg CBD. What do you think?
How are you, Clement?
Sure. Go ahead.
Clement, look, I think I agree with how
James, please say that again. The line was cutting there.
I'm saying I don't necessarily agree with how the president behaved himself.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, Clement, look, I mean, why did you do the same with Mashogo, Simelani, Utaveni, and Ngabandi? I mean, even if Ngabani can be aggrieved, I would agree, because I'm sure whoever she is, she's saying, why am I being singled out, being dismissed, do you understand? Why the other people who are delinquent like me, do you understand? So I think that if you ask the president, for instance, why don't you dismiss these people? I'm sure he used the argument that why they're innocent, they're proven guilty.
Yeah. Oh, James, your line is cutting there, but I think we get your point that the president has not been consistent here. Oh, well, he could argue that it depends on the seriousness of the allegations as well. Here's some WhatsApp voice notes.
Good morning, Clement and 702 listeners. Yeah, I believe if we have a power to hire and fire, it also means we've got a power to suspend. Yeah, because firing and hiring, there must be some intermediate phase between them, which includes suspension, of course. That's how I see it. Rosemary.
Absolutely.
I mean, Advocate Limpofu makes the law seem so black and white with no gray areas. I mean, there should be grounds to fire, and allegations are not sufficient grounds for firing, because in this case, the president's reason for putting the minister on a leave of absence is so that he does not interfere with investigations into these allegations made against him. So I really don't even see why we're having such a long legal wrangle over this matter. It's obvious. You can't just fire someone over allegations.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Morning, Clement and your team. Really, how can we allow the country that's anti-women in our country to come and establish a museum or whatever? I mean, we are so casual in this country. We wear what we like, so they'll come here with their own rules. No. They must keep that to their country. I don't agree with that. I agree with the DA when they say they mustn't come here. Surely that building we can use for a lot of things. Really. Please, they mustn't start. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
From
Thank you for that, Veronica. In fact, Veronica is talking about the Democratic Alliance position to oppose the possible sale or lease of the Pretoria City Hall to the Iranian embassy. They want to build restaurants there. They want a museum, I think a library in the hall. And their argument is that that would generate economic opportunity for the city. But the DA says, hey, don't even think about it because that's going to complicate our relationship with the US. Well, Cilliers Brink is the DA leader in Tshwane. Cilliers, how are you?
Good, and you, Clement?
I'm good. Why are you against this position? I mean, the city of Tshwane is still considering. They haven't made a decision yet. But why do you think this would be a bad move?
So the Iranian embassy writes to the MMC for Corporate and Shared Services, the politician who has oversight over municipal properties. And what they ask is for the city to contribute a building for a cultural center. Now that may or may not be a reasonable request, a segue into having a conversation. But the first place where the MMC then takes the representatives of the Iranian embassy is the City Hall, which is, if anything, a symbol of the sovereignty of the city government and of the country. And why would you conceivably want to donate or in any other way alienate your city hall to the embassy of another country?
Mm-hmm.
There is an additional problem to this, and that is that the relationship between South Africa and the United States is obviously very complicated. Tomorrow, unless something else happens, we are going to have very high tariffs that are going to affect South African jobs and businesses, including in this city, where we manufacture BMW X3s for export into American markets. And thousands of people who live in Harankuwa and Shoshanguve and Pretoria North, in fact, make their livelihoods because of that investment. What has complicated our relationship with the United States, in part, there are many things, it's not a simple matter, is the close proximity between the ANC and the government of Iran. And I think as a symbol, so the principle of not giving away your city hall to a foreign government stands on its own 2 feet. But what makes it worse is at this critical time for the country, that is the kind of message we send out to the world. And I don't think that is good for the people of Tshwane.
How long has this hall been vacant for?
Oh, it's been vacant for a long time.
So what, a decade?
It's been more than a decade.
So then why are we then not exploring the opportunities that would bring about economic value for the city? So whether it was the US, whether it was Zambia, the Zambian embassy that said, let us come in here and use this for the economic benefit of the city and the people of the city. Why is that not cool?
I am sure, Clement, if you embark upon an open process where you request proposals, that you are going to get a proposal from a South African partner, be it a different sphere of government that we can take hands with, or a South African developer, or a non-profit entity who is willing to make a contribution to repair the damages that were done to that city hall by irregular contract for renovations. I am sure that can be done, and that must be explored. But this is not what happened there. We got a letter as the city from Iran, from the embassy, who said, contribute a parcel of a building. That is what their letter said. Not, we want to buy, we want to rent a property, please explore the possibility. And then they were taken straight to City Hall. So I absolutely agree we need partnerships to revive these historical places, but this is not it. And I think it would send a terrible message if the City Council were to consider it.
All right, Cilliers Brink, DA leader in Tshwane, thank you so much for coming through. He's, in fact, the former mayor of Tshwane. What do you think? Where do you stand here? Do you think the Tshwane administration should allow for the Iranian embassy to come through and build their restaurants, a museum there to generate economic opportunity for the city? Or as Cilliers Brink says, no, rather give that opportunity to other people. I'm sure there are other businesses out there that have got capital that are willing to do this. Where do you stand on this one? I don't want to focus much on even the relationship with the US because I feel like there's nothing you can do that will satisfy them. You could be saying hi to an Iranian ambassador as a minister of international relations in South Africa, and the US may think, how dare you say hi to them? And yet they are allowed to say hi to them. They are allowed to have negotiations with them, but you just can't. The same way they tell you, don't talk to Russia. Why are you friends with China? But they can sit and have a conversation with them. It's a little weird, I think. It's 5 minutes before 10.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Morning, Clement, to your crew there, and morning to everyone else who's listening. You know, Clement, should the president be allowed to set such a precedent of, using implied powers against an elaborately prescribed powers in the Constitution? It will set a precedent that sterilizes the powers of the Constitution. If ever there is an act that warrants firing and hiring as the Constitution expressly prescribes, but that should be the case. It should not be otherwise. I mean, this should encourage those who are in power to act accordingly. Otherwise, they will be jeopardizing the functions and processes of the government of today. That's just about it. Unless if there is a reform here and there of the Constitution.
Yeah. Okay, I hear that, and I get that the ministers are not even employees. They're not hired based on our Labor Relations Act, for instance. But I'm worried that may be weaponized. If we have that expectation of the president that every time there's an allegation against your deployee, go to what the Constitution says, hire or fire, then fire them, suspend them. That's going to be weaponized. So people are going to do that just so that they can get their political enemies out. And that's my worry with it. So where's rationality there? Where's the need to give the allegations an opportunity to be tested? Sindile, you're calling from Kagiso. What are your thoughts?
Yes, Clement. It reminds me of the step aside of the ANC. But in any case, first point, when Clement, for you as a president to say Mantashe, get into a police ministry while you are implicated in another commission of the Zondo, that's jeopardizing the process itself. We are in this mess because of things like that, appointing Mantashe there. And there's a caller who said they will take the president to court. Remember, these people are not hired by Labor Relations Act.
Yeah.
They are appointed. You pick them there, you pick them there, and you fire them if you want to. And the lawyers of the president yesterday, they said the president now doesn't have a prerogative. I don't know what that argument was based on, because we all know that the president has a prerogative to appoint or disappoint. But my issue is that when you talk about this, we set a wrong precedent. The step aside is the same thing as this one, that the president can, suspend or whatever the case might be. But Jalimpofu said the president cannot suspend. But in any case, the Constitution is clear when Clement. The president cannot just do things as he pleases, because he's setting a wrong precedent. We'll follow this logic of the president, the country will be in trouble. That's my take here.
Thank you, Sindile, for your take. Peter in Centurion, quickly, what do you think?
Yeah, I Clement, good morning. I can see that some of my matters that I wanted to clarify has been clarified. One, yes, ministers are not employees. They are not appointed in terms of any employment law. However, what is important is that the rules of natural justice apply to everyone. What does it mean? It doesn't mean an inquiry, a full-blown inquiry. To ask a person to make their comments on the allegations against them, it takes a letter, a one-page letter to say, Minister X, Mr. Mkonazi is alleging this and that we have stolen X. What are you saying? He says, no, President, I've not stolen those eggs. But when the president checks, he discovers that those eggs are indeed missing. And then the president can fire the minister without having to go through a full-blown inquiry. And then there is nothing in between. The president cannot exercise a power that has not been conferred to him by the Constitution. One, there is no power to put a person on leave. There is no power to suspend a person. However, the Constitution does confer the power to reassign. That's a reshuffling. Had Mkhunu been taken to another department pending this inquiry, it would have made more
sense. Got you, Peter in Centurion. Thank you for that. Oh, I love these legal arguments. Just make you wish you were studying law, doesn't it?